Wow, hello.
Hi.
Zar. I'm Ana Lily Aminpour. I'm going to chat with Zar here and all of you. I know that there is a lot of Persians in here tonight.
Right on, man. Everybody.
And there are a lot of non-Persians in here tonight, too. Right. So I'm just going to give a quick little intro as far as what's happening in the world. Obviously, all of us Iranians are very well aware that since September 16th, there's been an uprising in Iran, a very bloody uprising, but a hopeful uprising against a medieval, tyrannical religious dictatorship that has been ruling Iran for 4 decades. And this new generation isn't putting up with it. A young girl was killed on September 16th, and it triggered this revolution. She was killed for dress code violations. And there are many violations and systemic oppression put on women, which have been there for 4 decades. And so this revolution feels different because women were at the front of this revolution, risking their lives and standing up in front of guns. So now you just saw this movie. I think for the Iranians, you probably never saw an Iranian movie like that before. We never show the prostitution. We never show the hijab even coming off, because you can't do that in Iranian cinema. And then for the Americans, maybe, or non-Iranian, maybe it felt like a serial killer movie. We've seen serial killer movies where prostitutes are targeted because they're vulnerable. And if they go missing, people don't come looking for them. But the thing that you haven't seen is where the serial killer is bragging to his kid that he's proud of what he did, and the kid believes him. You haven't seen the wife defending the serial killer for cleansing the streets. So I think that is what, and for me, when I saw this movie and I was deeply affected by it, the thing that scared me the most in the film was the scene where she couldn't get a hotel, and the scene where the cop comes into her hotel room, and how deeply you can be paralyzed as a woman. So I guess my question to you, because you were born in Iran, and you left Iran in 2009, is what was it like for you going back into that place of being a woman, trying to be a woman in that place?
Good question. You know, I think I never thought about this. I just went into it like very naturally, you know. I never thought that I'm just, you know, how I came actually this movie for me is a long journey. I started working with Ali Abbasi as casting director, then the actress who was supposed to play this character, she didn't come. She came, but she changed her mind because of 2 scenes in the movie where she is in hotel without hijab, without a headscarf, and with a shirt and short. And that would be a problem for an actress who's working in Iran, and she was working in Iran. And that was so sad already, you know, when she said she can't, and she just preferred to get back, and, you know, she didn't want to lose her career in Iran and her family and her friends. And that night, me and Ali, we were really sad because we liked her and we wanted her to be our Rahimi. And then we went through all those self-tapes we had and auditions, and Ali didn't really like anybody. And then, you know, that night we just thought, okay, I'm here, you're here, we're doing an audition, and that's how I came on board as Rahimi. And I had no time, you know, I had only 1 week to prepare myself. And I think, you know, that the audition took 24 hours. We started with the scene interviewing Saeed in the prison. It didn't really work. The second try didn't work, and at night, at midnight, Ali called me again, and he said, I have another idea, come and we're gonna try again. And that was the scene in hotel room when the officer comes and all those, the story of harassment and everything. And there, it was really weird. It was like I'm just sitting there and I'm watching my whole life. You know, kind of, I think as a woman who, I born in Iran, I grew up in Iran, I just left Iran when I was 26. I worked in Iran, and you know, I know those guys, I know that authorities, I know that system, I know that society. The fact that the guy, the officer is in your hotel room and he, you know, he put pressure on you to deal something with you, it's really familiar for me as an Iranian. But I think the story is even more than that, you know, it's a universal story. When I started, you know, when I had the character in my hands and I started just my research, and I called my friends who were working at that time 20 years ago in Iran, the journalists, they told me very sad stories about harassment, assaults, the difficulties they have every day in their daily work with people they interview, with authority, with society, with their colleagues. And somehow I brought, you know, somehow I linked my own experience of life in Iran. And I have a special story. My last year in Iran is a unique story, actually. And somehow I just saw Rahimi in myself. We are not the same, but somehow I found her in myself, and I was her, you know, that's why it just, you know, everything happened really, really naturally. That scene in hotel, this is our life, everyday life in Iran. Everyone, you know, the whole journey of Rahimi in this movie for me is kind of the challenge that a woman has in Iran as a woman. You know, everyone wants to stop you somehow.
And they're not fucking putting up with it anymore. One thing I think is really interesting that maybe some people don't know about this movie is that it's based on a true story, loosely based on an actual serial killer in Mashhad. And Mashhad is the city where Khamenei's from. Yeah, they're rioting in Mashhad now too. Like, they don't care about him. Anyway, this guy was doing this. He was preying on these women. So how much? But there was no journalist. Is the journalist is something he came up with in the story?
Yeah, that's interesting. The journalist is there is a journalist as a role model, but she was not this much involved in the investigations and everything. She just came after the guy got arrested, and she wrote an article. You know, the verse he says after, just right before execution, when he says that was not our deal, that's come from the article that the journalist wrote about. But she was not, you know, in the whole case as we see in the movie. And for me, that's amazing, you know, that's kind of, for me, the magic of cinema. This character is totally fictionalized. And then somehow today, you know, when I was always, even during the casting time, when I was working on the cast for 3 years, I was asking always myself, and we had hours and hours discussion with Ali, what's her reasons, what's her motivation to risk her life at this point? I'm not sure if all journalists, you know, except those war journalists, I'm not sure if they do that. And somehow, again, I found those reasons in my life, in my own experience, in my, you know, in all those harassments and the way that you want to just make your society safer for yourself and for other women. But today, when I see all these women and men risking their life in the streets of Iran, it's like there are thousands of Rahimi there. And they are fighting. You know, I had a friend 2 weeks ago. He told me I'm going to the street in Rasht, and I said, please be careful. I can't tell you don't go, but please be careful. And he said, yeah, right. You can't tell me don't go because I'm going for you because I want you to be back, and I do it for myself and everyone. And you know, that was beautiful. That night I just saw that, you know, I just, you know, it reminded me Rahimi. I just thought, yeah, that was the reason. She's not risking her life only for herself or for those prostitutes and victims and women, for everyone. And that's how, you know, I think I start to watch this movie in a different way. And I think everyone, you know, when you talk about women's life and, you know, after Cannes, we've got many critics about violence in this movie. I have people who just told me like the pornography of violence, and that made me so sad. You know, the French producer told me, well, but this movie is so violent, and I was like, no, it's not. I never thought this movie is brutal. I never ever thought. I don't want to normalize it, but I think what I have as an experience as a woman in Iran, this is nothing. And you know, I think at some point today, when we see all these images coming from Iran, the brutality is the reality there. That it is happening right there. And you know, this character also, it became somehow the reality, you know.
I think it's interesting too, because I thought about how this story is set in 2002. So that would have been, right, around then. So that would have been pre-internet, and also would have been around the time when these kids that are now in the street were born. So this world, this thing that Rahimi had to deal with, this new generation is born into with the same instincts she had, because we have that. And then the internet kind of making information available to everyone. It's just interesting to see that's literally the 20-year-olds that are in the street. It's born then. And now they're the ones that are protesting outside the jail, not his fans. His fans would be getting the shit. I gotta say one thing about Ali, too, as a filmmaker. And you see this in his first film. Have you seen Border, his first film? It's magnificent.
That's his second film.
It's his second film. Oh, my bad. That's bad. But yeah, I'll have to see his first film. He does an amazing job of putting you in the driver's seat with every character. He doesn't judge the characters as a filmmaker, in a way. Lets you try to understand why people become the way they become. And I have to say, in this film, I don't think I've ever been so satisfied when someone was executed in a movie as I was in this film. That's just me. I was so happy when he didn't get away.
Yeah, I
happened to the
heard
real
that
guy?
many times. You know, I heard that many times. People, they get, you know, even as Rahimi, we had this discussion because it's Rahimi who asked for lashes. That's why we are different. That's, you know, I just told Ali I can't say that. You know, this journalist doesn't ask for this. And Ali said nobody is perfect. And, you know,
And you have that need for some kind of justice.
somehow, and people, the audience, when they watch the movie, it's apparently, it comes to that moment that you want this guy to get executed. But all those people who just, you know, who wish for, who has this for the wish for this, they in the real life, they don't want this execution happen anyway, you know, in any way or anywhere with, you know, we are all kind of against it. But yeah, that's amazing how it just, how you get there, how you want, you wish for it, you know.
Should we open it up to questions from the audience, or? Yes.
I'm not going to be able to hear, though.